Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I had the opportunity to interview somebody who I have actually had the chance to interview before. And he brings such a wealth and depth of experience and knowledge that I'm looking forward to this conversation even more than the last. Born to a chemical engineer father and social worker mother in the working class town of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Omar L Harris learned the values of connecting process to outcomes and the importance of being of service to others at an early age. Being the youngest of 4 boys in a family of 5 children, he endured a lot of hope and pressure to succeed where others had failed in order to uplift and support his family. Moving from Pittsburgh to Charleston, West Virginia to Lake Charles, Louisiana over the course of his childhood and adolescence endured in Omar the ability to adapt to constant change, which has been his status quo as an adult living all over the U.S. and spending considerable time living and working in the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. As a young professional in the pharmaceutical industry, he was exposed to Gallup's Strength Finder tool back in 2002, which informed his philosophy of focusing on what was right with people versus what was not. According to the Strength Finder assessment, Omar learned that he was naturally gifted with the ability to forge connections between seemingly unrelated items, influence transformation from good to great, quickly generate options, inspire confidence in others, and confront and overcome obstacles. Honing his natural talents into reliable strengths, he successfully matriculated through Pfizer and ultimately found a corporate home at Shearing Plow as a fast-track management associate where he worked for one of the most successful marketing teams in the pharmaceutical industry. He became the youngest marketing director and senior marketing director in the company's history before Shearing Plow was acquired by Merck. His 8 years of experience working on this high-performing team became the seed of what would germinate and ultimately grow into his book, Leaderboard: The DNA of High-Performance Teams. Omar began leading teams in 2006 and began implementing principles he'd learned reading books by John C. Maxwell, Tom Rath, Patrick Lencioni, Stephen Covey, and Jim Collins, to name a few. Over time, he found significant gaps between the brilliant theories of these leadership giants and the exact application in the day-to-day minutia of leading a team in the real world. So he set out to synthesize and adapt these concepts into a suite of team performance acceleration principles that he used with teams of different sizes and scopes all over the world to drive results. Omar currently lives alone in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where he works as a country manager of Brazil for Allergan, where he loves to travel and experience the culture. Omar L Harris, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Let's do it, Jim. Let's do it.
Man, I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given my legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, my current passion really is writing, so that's where the author comes in. Leading, so which is why I maintain a position at Allergan and lead an enterprise of over 300 people, and high-performance strengths coaching, so basically helping people understand what's great about them and putting that into action to overcome their obstacles and achieve their goals.
Well, and talking about action, I mean, your book, Leaderboard, is just loaded with a lot of opportunities for that to take place. Being able to take, like you have said, some of those gaps that we often find in theory and making them real. But I think, first of all, we often have to realize that there's potential pitfalls and things that we can run into. And in the very beginning of the book, you talk about a negativity trap. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
So the negativity trap is really where you get into a mindset or the negative cycle of negative thinking that perpetuates negative outcomes. And this really comes from the book, How Full Is Your Bucket? Was written by Donald O. Clifton and Tom Rath back in, I think, the early 2000s was came out. And so what was most interesting about that particular book was there was a great example of POWs in internment camps in China and the psychological effect that the captors used on the captives to basically utilized negative reinforcement to perpetuate hopelessness instead of hopelessness in the captives. They didn't do torture. They didn't, beat them. They didn't treat them horribly. They just gave them bad news about their family. They wrote letters, for example, from the point of view of the family members dying in the U.S. as an example, or they would perpetuate other negative thoughts in the captives, and this led to a sense of hopelessness. And people basically died of hopelessness in these camps, not of torture, not of other things. So that was a very powerful example that I took from reading How Full Was Your Bucket. And then the inverse of that situation is the theory that if you provide positivity to others, you in turn fill your own well of positivity so you can further be energized to do your job and be engaged. So the idea that you can avoid the negativity trap simply by trying to do something nice for other people. So what I always tell people who are coming to me with negativity in my office and on a daily basis is, do something nice for somebody else. Do something positive for somebody else. Be aware of your impact, both positive and negative, on your teams and on your organization. The more positive energy you put out, the more you're going to get back to provide even more. So it's a bit of a virtuous circle. So you have to avoid the negativity trap, which is really these negative doubts, beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, career-limiting beliefs, things that we all have, anxieties, fears, worries, and counteract that by simply putting positive action into place. By putting positive action into place, you have the ability to really to drain the well of negativity, refill with a well of positivity. And this is the book starts off with this example because more than any other thing, there's a halo effect of the shadow of the leader on the organization when the leader is intentionally being positive with their organization versus when you're not aware of your actual impact on those around you. So it's about self-awareness. It's about intentionally being positive because that's going to have a far more powerful impact on employee engagement and productivity, and you're going to get it back in yourself as well.
Well, to me, what you just said right there is really the importance of modeling, because I think it's too easy for us, especially if we're in a position where we have some subordinates, to oftentimes fall into the trap to where it's like, okay, don't do what I'm doing, do what I'm telling you to do.
Right. And today's employees, the millennials and those coming after them, they're watching you. Basically, the idea of transparency is everywhere, right? Transparency on the web, transparency on social media. Right now, there are websites and services where bosses are being rated by their employees at Glassdoor.com. So everybody's watching you now, and the information about you as a leader can get transmitted faster than ever before. If you are a negative leader or a toxic leader in today's environment, everyone's going to know and no one's going to want to work for you. Whereas before, you kind of get away with it. Today, in today's world, you can no longer get away with being a toxic leader. And so that's really why I start the book with the negativity trap, to show that the main character of the story is trying to avoid that so he can basically perpetuate something positive for himself and then for the organization.
Well, one of the things that's important to all of this as well is making sure that when we're selecting people for our teams, regardless of the size, and I would dare to say the smaller the team, the even more important that is that we don't just necessarily go through a very typical or common process of interviewing. You actually use something that's a little bit different. What is that?
So my principle is called interviewing, but interviewing begins actually after the person has been hired to the team. So it's a step of onboarding. So, and one of the things that is really amazing to me in today's day and age is that leaders outsource onboarding to HR. So HR cannot create a personal relationship with your people with you. HR is not going to sell your people on you. Think about this. When you hire someone, the max amount of time they spent with you as their hiring manager is probably an hour in that first interview you did with them, right? You think that there's a bond of trust already created and a bond of they understand your style, what's going to work for you, what works for them, and how you guys are going to work together to form a powerful partnership and really drive results? No. So interviewing is taking the next step, which is saying, listen, we work together. I, as your leader, have an intense interest and curiosity about who you are as a person, what makes you who you are. And I'm going to sit down with you over the course of 2 to 3 hours and get to know the building blocks of you, your motivators, your desires, your drivers, your strengths, your weaknesses, things you hate, things that drive you crazy, things you love, Because when I have all that information right from the beginning, first of all, the fact that I'm asking these questions creates proximity between the two of us. The second thing it does is it builds trust, because it shows that my manager is concerned about knowing me as a person before we start talking about what my job actually is. So it's know the person, focus on the person, not just a role. And those two things combined creates a powerful partnership between you and your employee, which is the building block. If you have that with every individual member of your team, this is how you begin to jump through some of the stages of group formation and hack some of that process, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure, Jim. So, but that's what interviewing really is a standardized approach during the onboarding process within month one of someone coming on your team, where you sit down and really reveal yourself, become vulnerable, let them know about your life. You get to understand their life, build that powerful partnership, and then take steps from there.
Well, one of the things that also to me is quite the opportunity when you start talking about that is I could even do that to my boss. So like, for example, they may not come with me with this, come to me with this particular, interview process. However, I could essentially be using this tool in order for me, as their direct report, to get to know them better, whether or not, it's open discussion and that they're willing to do it. I just need to collect this information so that when I do try to get, my ideas forth and approved, when I try to, have them enable us to get certain things done that only they can do. I mean, I see it being as a very powerful tool in a lot of ways.
So, Jim, you're going to the advanced step, because actually you're exactly right. The questionnaire works both ways. I'm trying to influence leaders to be more people-oriented, and I'm asking them to do the step of doing interviews. But if you're an employee, you also have an obligation to bridge that barrier with your new manager. So it works both ways. And actually, when I started my new job with Allergan last summer, when I joined and I moved to Brazil from Indonesia, I actually sat down with my new manager, who was the senior vice president of the Lacan region, and I did an interview with him, a reverse interview. So we sat down over lunch, and I actually used the process so that we built a bond of trust right from the beginning. I understood what his pet peeves were. I understood what he expected from me style-wise, what he expected from me from a communications perspective. I understood about his life, the fact that he had 5 kids, and his birthday, whether it was important for him. So we got to a different level of camaraderie over the course of a 2-hour lunch, and then our relationship was off to the races from that moment on. So you're exactly right. It shouldn't just be the manager to the new colleague, actually the colleagues. It's actually very powerful for colleagues to use these with their manager as well.
Well, and I want to make sure that people kind of understand when we start talking about the reverse interview process is that certain cultures, that's kind of expected.
Right.
If we're talking about the North American culture, specifically in the United States, we oftentimes will shirk or discount the importance of doing something like that because we think it's invasion of somebody's privacy. But in fact, that's how you build relationships, is getting to those things, because it's not what we don't want to know what it is that people do. What we want to know is, who are they?
Exactly. And the best teams I ever worked for, Jim, were teams where we were involved in each other's lives. We got personal. So, and I think if you're going to spend all this time working with a group of people to achieve a goal and you don't get personal, it's really, what's the point of it? I mean, I think that's, keeping it 100% professional and only what happens when people walk into the office. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes as a teammate or as a boss. You're really missing a major trick in terms of motivation and engaging the organization. And that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing this global disengagement crisis, because managers are increasingly less engaged and involved in their people's lives. They don't understand what's happening. I'll give you another example, Jim. I'm doing my mid-year performance reviews, right? And one of the questions that I'm asking in my mid-year performance reviews is, tell me, how is your level of stress right now? How is your current level of engagement with me and with the enterprise and with the projects we're working on? How is your overall health? And is there anything in your personal life affecting your performance right now? I'm asking these questions in a mid-year review. I can ask these questions because I've already done interviews with all these people. And we already have trust. If I just come out the door asking questions like this, it's not going to work. But because I've already put the work in, when I ask questions like this that are really caring and understanding questions that let me know what's going on with somebody, it's not taken in the wrong way. And it further builds those lassos of trust.
It's funny that you say that because I, a while back, was doing a mid-year review with somebody who was reporting to me, and I started asking them questions about how could I, better serve and support them? How could I, and basically that was the gist of the review process. And then when it was all done, she looked at me kind of funny and she said, "Is that it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "That is the strangest review that I've ever."
But we are of like minds, Jim. I asked the exact same question because for me, once again, that whole concept of servant leadership, I work for you. I need to remove barriers from you so you can be massively successful. If you're successful, I'm successful.
Most definitely. Okay, so another thing when you start talking about identifying the right people, you use another little bit of a twist, somewhat of an acronym, and then you use something called WHOM, WHOM. What does that stand for and what does that do?
So WHOM is the step before interviewing, which is how I identify high performance DNA right from the start. Let me give you the background of this. So bridging another Leadership Titans philosophy into the practical application. So one of my favorite books is Good to Great. I love Good to Great so much. If you haven't read Good to Great, it's a study of top tier companies. They had a peer group and basically they delivered 10 times market performance over a 30-year period. And they were studied by Jim Collins and Associates. And then they wrote a book of somewhat not obvious insights about what made the great companies distinguish themselves from the good companies. So the first principle of Good to Great was not, a counterintuitive insight was not they had the best mission or had the best process. It was called first who, then what. So first who, then what says, as a basic principle, get the right people on the bus and then decide where the bus is going, right? And I love that, and I kind of committed it to memory. But then I'm in the day-to-day world, and I'm like, but who are the who? How do I decide who the right people are? Is it experience, pedigree, past success? Is that the best measure of who? I started there. But then I realized that actually where you went to school, how smart you are on an IQ test, and your past success does not necessarily predict your future success. I had to go deeper. So I created an acronym. Initially was just work ethic, heart, and optimism. And that was built out of really thinking about the teams that I worked on that were very successful. And what did every one of those teams have in common? Well, we all worked really, really hard. We had shared passion, and we saw problems and barriers as opportunities and not as things that were going to slow us down or stop us. So I used the WHO principle for many, many years. And then when I was working in Indonesia, I added the M, which is maturity, because as I've begun increasing my leadership in terms of leading leaders, then leading leaders of leaders, and leading leaders of leaders of leaders, the higher up you go. So for example, now I'm leading leaders of leaders of leaders. Maturity becomes a much more important attribute. And you can't assume just because someone is, 45, 50 years old or in their 40s that they're mature. And what I mean by maturity is they can deal with inevitable disappointment. They can deal with conflicts productively when they arise and then make positive outcomes come out of that. So then I began creating questions for maturity that complemented the entire cycle. So now when I hire a team, anyone who comes on my team, they have to prove to me that they have the necessary minimum level, work ethic, heart, optimism, and maturity. My current team now is comprised of all these individuals. We don't have unnecessary conflicts about silly things. We're very focused on the mission. We all are aligned and passionate about what we're doing. And when we encounter problems, we're very quick and collaborative to solve them together. So high performance is almost guaranteed if you have that DNA right from the start, which is why I recommend hiring the right whom.
Well, and as you were saying that, I kind of chuckled inside because I used to have this saying that I used quite often, and you're causing me to reflect and bring it on back as talking about, my career of managing, hundreds of people through operations at various times, is that I would say I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to lead 18-year-old men and 65-year-old boys.
There it is. You brought the whole thing home. And the whole point is, as a leader, don't assume that the behavioral attributes you need to be successful are there. So a lot of times we focus on someone's talent and their potential, but these people are destructive on teams. I've dealt with some of the smartest people you could ever lead, and individually they are superstar, they're brilliant, but you put them around another group of people and the frustrations boil over and people don't move fast enough for them, and then it just creates unnecessary tension and people can't get things done, and it evolves into just a lot of negativity, and you're in that storming phase that we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Okay, so and you're talking about the team work and the team building process. I mean, that, talking about going back on those Titans, that was done back in the 40s or 50s, I think. And you probably have more insight and sharing on that. But there's a specific process that teams go through, and it actually evolves. And sometimes you go back 2 steps and move forward. But talk about that team process.
So Bruce Tuckman, who's a behavioral psychologist and a giant of behavioral psychology, wrote a landmark article called Group Development and Sequences. And in that landmark article, what he did was he basically took a lot of research from a lot of different disciplines on different groups of people, and he looked to find the thin red line between all these studies. And what he found was that basically, when you talk about groups of, between 1 and 25 people, like smallish type groups, when you put these people together and you give them a task, naturally they're going to go through 4 stages. Forming is the first stage, storming is the second stage, norming is the third stage, and performing is the last stage. Now, forming is guaranteed, and I would say storming is guaranteed. Norming and performing are not guaranteed. Just because you're in a group of people, you don't always arrive at norming, and most teams never actually arrive at performing. Although their managers or leaders may think that they're in high performance, but they're not actually performing. So let me go through each one of those stages for you, Jim, so we can break it down a little bit better. Forming happens either when it's a brand new team, a brand new group of people coming together. So basically, it's a startup and you're starting a new organization, or when the leader is new. So imagine you were a leader like I was coming into Brazil last year, inheriting an organization. The team begins to form around me because my energy, just my presence, changes the organization. So we're forming from that perspective. Or forming happens when the mission changes. So imagine that you won a championship, but the next year you want to win another championship. Well, the next year's task is different than the first year's task. The team members may be different. The dynamics in the market may be different. So therefore, you're forming again around the task. So those are the 3 instances where you're actually forming. So basically, it's a group of people coming together to do a task. As you go through and begin to decide how you're going to go about doing the task, you go into a phase called storming, which is basically when everyone has a different opinion about how to accomplish the task. You put 10 people together and say, listen, screwing a light bulb. That's where the joke comes from, right? You're going to find, 10 different opinions about the best way to do that, right? So that's storming in a nutshell. It's basically everybody wanting to put their point of view on the table and say, listen, this is how we should go about doing this particular task. The leader is trying to assert their authority. Individuals are trying to be political, either to become close to the leader or to basically remove the leader's power. So it's a very uncomfortable period of time because although people they know what the task is and they agree on the task, how to achieve the task has not yet been aligned. So norming is once, everyone is aware of the task and know what we're trying to accomplish, and we agree on how we're going to go about achieving the task. So what are the rules of the road? What are the rules of the game? Now we're in norming. Now we have certain rules and established ways of working that will allow us to go forward and accomplish the task. And usually it stops right there, Jim. It stops at norming. Because you've gone through storming, what happens in norming that prevents high performance? Well, one thing, people will become too polite. They don't want to disrupt the harmony that they've established after coming through storming. So there's an artificial harmony that pervades norming teams that the leader must disrupt. Only the leader can disrupt the artificial harmony by stimulating productive conflict. By stimulating productive conflict, then you get to the next stage, which is performing. That is when not only does everybody know what the task is, not only does everybody have the ways of working, but everyone is laser focused and 100% passionate on doing whatever it takes to achieve the task. That's the difference between a performing team and a norming team. It's the level of commitment and the level of focus and orientation towards nothing's going to stop us from achieving this task. Not even artificial harmony. And that's when you get to a high performance.
Well, and when you start talking about yet another acronym, so we hit several, you closed the book with something called TPAP. What is TPAP?
So really what I wanted to do was, because once again, Bruce Tuckman wrote a great article, right? About forming, storming, norming, and performing. There's nothing in the article that says, what should a leader be doing, or how can a leader actually help a group of people faster move through these stages? So that's where the TPAPs come into play, because basically I've identified in the literature and in my own personal experience that there are definitely proactive ways a leader can take to speed the group from forming to performing. And so the team performance acceleration principles, or TPAPs, are the actual practical application, things you can do starting today that will allow you to move much faster through forming, jump right through storming, get to norming very quickly, and then get to performing after that. So there's 5 team performance acceleration principles linked to each one of the stages of group formation. And that's what's really unique about Leaderboard, is that there's never been that kind of guidance linked to the stages of group formation put together before. And it's not only my own ideas, it's also the amalgamation of the leadership from the greatest minds on business and operations and organizations over the last 20 or 30 years. But what's different is it's all practical application. It's all things you can do, download tools, and start utilizing them today.
Well, I think that's the missing component for so many folks, and they may get, charged, energized, excited, motivated, when they hear and read, certain things about leading, and then it's like, okay, now let's go do it. And they're like, where do we start? And it's crickets.
Right. Exactly. So, what I like to say is the first person to go through the wall gets the bloody nose. I've gotten the bloody nose for everybody else. I've actually taken the pain and time to try to implement these things in the real world, see what works, what does not, filter all that out, and give you a curated list of tools that will definitely work to move the needle forward for your organizations.
Well, and as I had mentioned to you, going through the book, I was inspired in a lot of different ways. I also had the opportunity to have Dr. Jim Harder on the Fast Leader Show, who is the chief research scientist of workplace for Gallup, who's the author of this book called It's the Manager.
Yep.
He also shares a lot about the strengths. And while, there's some people out there that will talk about the strengths and even, that strengths finder and identifying and, all of that, has some gaps in it as well.
It does.
It's nothing is perfect here, but I think one of the things that you've done with Leaderboard, and I think you're also, working on some additional works associated with that, is making it, like you said, it's tangible, the day to day. This is okay. Take all of this theory, and do these things, and now you'll have success.
Yeah. Speaking of the strengths specifically, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, is, as a certified strengths coach, I have a gigantic frustration I'm going to reveal to you right now, which is the power of focusing on what's right with people versus what's wrong with them as a leader to engage and really transform someone's career is phenomenal. 2 problems we have. Right now, only 20 million people globally have taken a Strengths Finder assessment. So the vast majority of people still have not learned their strengths, 1. And globally, there are less than 4,000 certified strengths coaches for 20 million people in the world. So even if you take the Strengths Finder test and you are very passionate and you get the bug that you want to develop your strengths, that the likelihood that you're going to find a strengths coach that's going to be able to take you through the process and help you improve is very difficult because of the gap between the number of people who are taking the assessment and the number of actual strengths coaches. So Leaderboard also fits in there to bridge that gap to a certain extent as well, because what I talk about in the book and what a leaderboard actually is, so other than a clever title, is one of the actionable steps that we're talking about. So all a leaderboard is is taking principles from strengths-based leadership, which was published back in 2008. And what strengths-based leadership said is that, there are 35 themes of talent. So basically everybody has 34 teams of talent, which are ordered in terms of their dominance from 1 to 34, right? These themes of talent, they organize into 4 domains of strength. So executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So basically all the 34 talents are organized in 4 domains of strength. What I take it a little bit further than Gallup is to say, what that means to me is that if I'm a leader looking at a group of people, that means I have people on my team who may be better than me in execution, who may be better than me at influencing outcomes, who may be better than me at relationship building, or who may be better than me at strategic thinking. I don't have to be great at all these things as leader anymore. I just have to be able to put the people who are great at those things in their strength zone on a daily basis and then watch the magic happen. And that's what a leaderboard is. A leaderboard is basically identifying the top domains of everyone on your team and then gamifying the work, because every project actually has elements of execution, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking to it. So if you break down tasks and allocate them towards the individual on your team who are strongest in those areas and gamify it, you're going to start seeing progress towards goals accelerate at an exponential rate. And that's what we did on our team as an actual example back in the early 2000s. And that's what a leaderboard is. And that's the real gold at the heart of the book is how do you apply strengths-based leadership actually in the workforce for a team and take it beyond the great theory of focusing on what's great with people, but actually put it to work.
I mean, so for me, as you were talking, I'm like, well, that's the personalization of work. I mean, what you're doing is you're making it right for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, needless to say, when we start talking about a lot of, the frustrations, a lot of the successes and the exhilarations, there's a lot of things that help us really to get pointed in the right direction. And on the show, we focus on quotes. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
My favorite quote, and I don't know if it applies necessarily to what we're talking about here, but it's by Emerson. No change of circumstances can overcome a defeat of character. So that's something I carry with me is that, and I think it does link because if you're talking about this transparency now that we have and the fact that everything you do is watched and collated and seen, especially by the people who work for you, you can't, if you're a poor leader, changing companies is not going to make you a better leader. You need to put in the work. And you need to make sure your character is at the utmost level at all times, especially as a leader. So, it's inexcusable for the higher up you go to become a worse person. It's inexcusable. I think the higher up we go, the better off we have to get, the more actualized we have to become, and the more supportive we have to be for our people, because that's why we were given that great title. It was not, because it's because we have a lot more to give back to the organization. It's not about the ego. It's about what we have to get back to the organization. So I think that quote for me kind of sums up that idea.
Well, and the modeling becomes even more important, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So I really am passionate about the servant leadership approach, servant leadership philosophy, and really helping leaders understand that there's another way to achieve results. Top down used to work. Still works in certain organizations, certain cultures, and certain instances. But if you want sustainable high performance, if you adopt servant leadership and begin to go to the customer and go to your front line and understand what the real challenges are and begin to drive solutions faster to those challenges, how can you not drive higher performance?
Well, I think for me, like you were talking about, is knowing, and some people will call that situational leadership. So, I mean, I need to do top down. I mean, I just need to. But if I want that long-term, value generation, attention, all that, well, then I need to switch. And I need more of the things that you're talking about.
And you're right. And one of the other things that I talk about in the team performance, in the discussion section of the book is, what is the role of the leader in the 4 stages? Because it changes. Because in forming, you have to be much more directive. You do have to kind of tell people what to do and organize the group and organize the work. Whereas in storming, your mindset has to be coaching. You need to coach people a lot more. In norming, I talk about inspecting. So not coaching, but inspecting. So you need to make sure the norms hold up under all circumstances. So there's different coaching aspects depending on what stage your team is in. And that will help you also move the team through the stages, is acknowledging what you have to do and what you have to exhibit for the group in that particular situation.
Well, and I would dare to say that where you are now was a direct result of, capturing a lot of information, self-awareness, continuous commitment, to learning, all of those things that, just didn't come in your youth. And so when I start thinking about lessons learned, we talk about getting over the humps. Is there a time where you've gotten over the hump that you can share?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that, early on in my career, I coasted on talent, on my own individual talent. So my own ability to be very, very hardworking, but my own individual talent to put things together in a way that people hadn't thought of before. And I kind of really coasted on that. But when I became a leader of organizations and teams, the first time I led a team, I was trying to, once again, utilize my own individual talent to drive this group of people towards a goal. And I put the whole team on my back. And just like LeBron James carrying the Cleveland Cavaliers to the finals in 2007 versus the Spurs. But the Spurs were a team. LeBron James was one guy with a group of people, you don't even know who they are right now, right? That was like me back in 2006. I was dragging my organization forward, and we were getting some results done. But the moment I was out of the picture, it kind of collapsed. And that's not leadership. Leadership is, once again, sustainable DNA. It's in the DNA. That means that whether you're there or not, these principles are going to be upheld and moving forward. So I think I had to overcome that hump, because also the cost of myself was very personally challenging. I went through panic attacks. I went to the hospital several times at that same time in my life. I was working myself and putting so much pressure on myself individually that I almost broke myself. And I think that I had to reflect and really come back and say, listen, actually, I'm not trusting my people enough. I'm not putting them in the right places to win. And I had to invent a new way to do this. And that's when I began embarking on the journey that ultimately began, that ends with Leaderboard being published.
Well, and like I said, I know you're working on, your next, opportunity and your next book. I'm not going to get into that. I know that's something that I would dare to say out the course of your career, you're probably going to produce several. But I know you said you're a strengths coach finder. You're a country manager, you're author, speaker. I mean, you got a lot of things going on. So when I start thinking about a goal, what's one of your goals?
Well, my main goal right now, and one goal that you're really helping me with, Jim, is to really get some of these ideas out there. I think it's not about that. This is bigger than Omar L Harris. It's bigger than any one person. This is about how are we going to. The numbers are depressing. If you look at the employee engagement numbers, you look at what the book It's the Manager talks about in terms of employee engagement, you just get depressed. You're like, listen, how do we? We're going to be in a perpetual recession or depression from an economic perspective if we don't get this thing fixed, right? So for me, it's really about trying to change the hearts and minds of, principally new leaders coming in. So I want to really focus on new people who are coming up. And I'm really focused on doing whatever I can do in my power to get the word out to the new leaders coming in that there's another way to do this. And maybe not the ultimately right way, but there's another way to do it, another path. There will always be other paths of how to do things. So I think that's one major goal that I have set for myself right now, which is where I'm really, really focused on that. And then in my day-to-day world is just making sure that I am actually the example of these principles. So I think that, one of the things that happens to you when you write a book like this, and you're not a theoretical person, you're not in academia, you're actually doing it every day, is people can say, Omar is not walking the talk. He wrote an entire book about this stuff, and he doesn't do any of it. Whereas actually, when I'm talking to my team and my media reviews, one of my colleagues, she said to me, she said, Omar, one of the great things that people appreciate about you is you wrote this book, but it's 100% you. And that meant the world to me, that actually that, I'm really walking the talk. And I think being that example, showing people that I'm not just talking about this stuff, that I actually do it, is also really important to me right now, to be somewhat of an example and to really talk to anybody who needs help on how they can make the transition, because I made it to the other side of this, and that's what I'm really focused on now.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Omar, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us insights fast. So several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Omar L Harris, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Not working out enough. So my own personal energy is not, I need to work out more and get my physical fitness more in shape.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Focus on the person, not the role.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Daily habits that lead to future outcomes. So basically making sure that I focus on the right daily habits to lead to future outcomes. Although I'm not doing the workout enough, and I'm getting enough water, getting enough sleep, reading every day, and making some time for meditation on a daily basis.
And what do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
My energy and my positivity and my enthusiasm.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? It could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to Leaderboard on your show page as well.
The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Omar L Harris. Okay, Omar, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question.
All right.
Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25.
Okay.
Knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only choose one. What skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
The only thing I would go back and I'll tell myself is give myself the perspective that everything happens in due time. Don't get ahead of myself. Because I need to accumulate knowledge as well as accumulate promotions and whatnot. I was very focused on promotion to getting to a certain level. And I think that, actually time and experience and perspective is equally valuable, not just moving fast throughout your career.
Omar, it was a fun time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yes, the best way to reach me, Fast Leader Legion, is through my website, www.omarlharris.com, OmarlHarris.com.
And Omar L. Harris, it was an honor to spend time with you today, and the Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.